Hivin and Vibin with Dr. Beebe.
Everyone, welcome to Hivin and Vibin with Dr. Beebe. Today here with us we have Cathy Derksen. Cathy Derksen is the passionate founder of Inspired Tenacity, an international speaker, publisher, and a 19 times best-selling author. After reimagining her own life in her 50s, Cathy discovered her mission to help midlife women embrace new possibilities and boldly share their stories. She believes that authorship and community are the keys to true impact, both for the storyteller and the lives they touch. Through their multi-author through her multi-author book projects, retreats, and vibrant community, Cathy has helped over 200 women become established authors, amplifying their visibility, expanding their business, and building lasting legacies. Welcome, Cathy, to Hivin and Vibin with Dr. Bibi.
Perfect. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Uh, could you share how did you start Inspired Tenacity?
Yeah, Inspired Tenacity was born at a time when I was in the middle of a lot of big changes in my life. So I had just gone through a divorce. I had two teenagers with me at the time. I had just decided to completely change my career. So there was just a lot of big things going on. And it kind of came to me intuitively in that intuition or inspiration and tenacity are two major things that we need to have to get through big changes in life. And I felt that for what I was focused on with helping midlife women step into new things, that inspiration and tenacity are exactly what they need.
Aha. So let's start with when you were a child. Did you really think that one day you would be publishing books?
No, and even if you'd asked me 5 years ago if I was going to get into being an author and publishing books, I would have laughed at you because it was never on my radar.
So let's start from when you were a child. What did you plan to do? And children start with dreaming of even driving engines. So what was your dream? What did you want to aspire to be? And then what did you become? Give us the whole journey.
Well, I love to say that I've been a biologist since the age of 3. So as soon as I was old enough to decide what I was interested in and what I wanted to do, it was always about living things. So my whole childhood, I had a whole zoo of things going on in my room. I had everything from frogs and lizards to every kind of bug and caterpillar, snails, you name it. It was in my room. The only thing that wasn't in my collection, I think I tried a couple times, but spiders. Spiders were something I just could not have in my space.
Snakes?
Yes, so yes, snakes and
Seriously?
lizards. Yes,
Oh my
yes.
goodness.
Although here in Canada, we don't have the kind of snakes you have in Australia. Our
Uh-huh.
snakes are relatively small and calm. They
Okay.
don't cause trouble.
They're not poisonous. They're not venomous.
Not the ones that I ever lived near. We do have rattlesnakes in some parts of my province, but not in most of the places I've lived.
Okay.
So,
All right.
so yeah,
Thank
so
God
so
for
it
that.
was yes, oh yes, yes. The nice little garter snakes we had were quite friendly, and obviously they didn't really like us picking them up, but they were pretty harmless. And then yeah, from there I really just held on to that love of living things, all kinds of creatures. My dad was allergic to fur and feathers, so after I was about 10 years old, we couldn't have any of those in the house. So then I had rabbits outside and things like that. But then in my career path, I continued to follow that, and my first career was in medical genetics. So I always kind of felt like genetics was the very centerpiece of biology and everything that goes on around it. And it was really fascinated. And back then, that was in the late 80s, 90s into the 2000s. And of course, that's when genetics was turning into genomics. Dolly the sheep was causing trouble for those of us that remember those days. And so that was what my first career was. So 25 years, I was mainly in hospital labs and public education.
Whoa. All right. So which one did you really enjoy? Did you enjoy the research bit, or did you enjoy the teaching bit?
I would say part I loved the most was learning about all the new cutting edge things that were going on. Again, back in those days, there was so much new going on. Everything to do with genomics was just a eye-opening thing, what we could do next. And what I really loved is all the different applications of genomics. The more we've learned about analyzing different creatures, understanding the crossover between all these different living things, and even analyzing, say, a pot of pond water, and actually being able to figure out all the little things that are in that pond water. And things like helping salmon species that are dying away, and even cleaning up mines, how they can use different kinds of bacteria to clean up mines. It's been involved in the wine industry, which was really fun. And so really there was no end to the different applications. So to me, that was the most fun.
All right. So then from there on, you went on to?
Well, that was when I was hitting that really crazy time in my life. When I did my first career change was in the middle of that. So the divorce, the complete career change, starting everything over. And at that time, I did a lot of kind of personal reflection on what am I here to do? What is my real calling in life? And at that time, I knew I wanted to do something that was in direct contact with people, because of course working in a hospital lab or other labs, you don't have a lot of contact with real people, just the small group you work with. But the big thing was I knew I was supposed to be doing something that was creating a true impact in the lives of women on a global scale. I had no idea what that would look like, but that was just the message that came to me of what I was supposed to do. And so, not knowing what that was going to look like, I went through the kinds of options I thought I had available, and I went into financial planning. So many women say that they are challenged dealing with their money and understanding it, and the industry itself is so male dominated. There was a lot of, I felt that maybe I could be that woman that would help other women understand their finances, make changes in their life. And so I did that for about 10 years, had my CFP, all the credentials, but still felt that it wasn't the right answer. I knew that what I was supposed to be doing was something outside of those boundaries that are the financial industry. And so it's been about 4.5 years now that I made the big decision to leave that all behind and really start out and figure out what it was I was supposed to be doing. And that's how I ended up as an entrepreneur. And the books, as we were mentioning, the main thing I'm doing now is creating multi-author books. So mainly focused on women, giving women opportunities to become published authors, to build their global networks, to build visibility in their business, and really to creating a legacy with their story. And I believe that women really lift each other, motivate, inspire each other through our stories. So that's really become the big thing that I do now. And like I said, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, this was not even on my radar. I got started in, I think it's around 2019. I got started in the first book that I did, and that one was called Emotional Intelligence, Mental Health Matters. And at that time, I was still working at the bank, so I wasn't promoting anything. I wasn't, my own business or anything. And to me at that time, it was all about, I felt my story could help somebody else. And when I did the first book, I had no intentions of doing more. I just thought my story needs to be in that book and, get it out there. But I love the process. I love the community that comes together in these books. And next thing I know, here I am 5 years later, and it's the main thing I do. And you mentioned that I've got 19 books so far, and as of next week, it'll be 20.
Oh, lovely. We look
Hitting the
forward to
big
that.
20 this week. And yes, so I would never have guessed this, but this is definitely where I'm supposed to be.
And have you made any plans for your 25th book? Because that is almost round the corner.
It will be around the corner because I've got 3 books that will be coming out in the next couple of months. So probably by mid-October, there'll be at least 3 more books out. And that's close to around the end of the year or early into the new year. Yes, that number 25 will be here.
Oh, lovely. So then that is almost ready too. So fine. So could we learn a little more about what are the books that you are currently, and on the way and, is going to be published soon?
Sure. The next one that from my collection that's coming out is called Passion, Purpose, and Possibilities. So with that one, we're just finishing up all of the editing, and then we'll start with the marketing, and that one should be out in mid-September. And the next one will be 20 Shades of Grief. So that will be exciting to get that out in the world. The one around the same time will be Midlife Reimagined. And then one of the ones that we're just finishing filling right now, but we're still hoping will be out around the same time, probably pushing a bit into November, is called Inspired Metamorphosis. So that one I'm just filling the last few spots this week, so that's exciting. And then we've got one it's called From Inspiration to Success, the Entrepreneurial Journey. And that one, we're aiming to have that one out by the end of the year. So hopefully we'll reach that goal.
So that will be the 25th one then.
That's right. I better start counting on my fingers and see what.
So no, roughly, I was just counting on my head and trying to understand, trying to calculate. So is that the 24th or 25th or 26th?
You're right. That one will be the 25th.
Right, and that sounds to be actually the right wrap up for a 25th publication because it
That's right.
talks about
So I do
inspired.
have to then get it done this year in 2025.
Yeah, that's lovely. So uh, so when you choose your stories, how do you go about choosing the stories and decide that, these are the stories that should be in this particular book?
Mm-hmm. I do it a lot by matching individual people to the theme we're working on. So for instance, right now with the Inspired Metamorphosis, the group that's in that book are all women from literally around the world. We've got women in Guatemala, Dubai, Switzerland, Germany, Australia, all over North America. And they're all women who have come through a major change in life. And not only have they come through their own transformation, but they're now focused on helping other people transform their life. So they're a good fit for that one. The book Passion, Purpose, and Possibilities, really focusing on people who had a real calling with their passion. So it wasn't necessarily they'd come through a major transformation, but they had a solid grounding in what their passion was, what their purpose was, and looking for possibilities. And so that's kind of how I do it. I tend to have at least 3 or 4 different books going on at the same time. So when I meet somebody who's interested in becoming a published author in this way with these multi-author books, I can look at what I have available and say, okay, which is the best fit for her? And some of my books also have men in them. So my book that's focused on entrepreneurs, that one has some men in it, and the grief book also has men in it. So every now and then I bring in one that open it up to everybody, and so that's always fun. But in a way too, I find that different titles call different people. So when they hear the title, there's this feeling of that's my book. I have to be in that book. And a couple of the other ones that we're just getting started with, one is called She Thrives. Another one is Rooted in Resilience. So for some people, resilience is a word that they're really focused on. Other people, thriving is a focus of their work and their passion. So that's kind of how I, fit people in with the right book.
Lovely. And learning how you match the books with the authors, and how you actually, in a way, plan the destiny of that book and the authors as well. So you are not only planning the destiny of the book, but you're also planning the destiny of how these authors are shaping up, or giving a statement to their work, their career, and also to themselves, meaning to themselves, a kind of an underline to their identity. So having said that, what would you say made what is it that makes you? What are the ingredients that make Cathy Derksen?
Well, I would definitely have to say that intuition has become a very important factor in everything I do in my life. Tenacity is definitely one of my favorite words. Another word that I'm really connected with is courage. I think, some of the major changes that I've come through and many other women have come through, courage is another key ingredient to that. I would say one of the things I do very naturally is connecting people and bringing people together, which I think is why I love doing these books so much, is that just to be able to literally reach out around the world and bring together a group to work on a project is really kind of the sweet spot of what brings me joy. And that's why it's so great that I have a publishing team that I work with on my books. So I don't get involved in the fine details of the editing and the publishing and the proofreading and the marketing. I've got a team that looks after all those things that they're really good at, because the part that I'm really good at is the front end, creating the titles and themes, finding and bringing together those people. And that I would say is one of the keys of everything I do.
Right. How would you want people to remember you?
Ooh. Let's see. I would definitely like them to remember me as caring, generous, outgoing, adventuresome, always looking for something new, and definitely a person who loves people.
I also think that you are very organized and very planned. That's my take of you.
Perfect. Just hold on to that.
Yeah, definitely we'll hold on to that. But from your struggles, the ones that you mentioned about your divorce, and that you had two young teenagers with you at that time, and from where did you find the strength to, go through that, the tenacity that you speak about? You must have found the strength somewhere, the bedrock of it. Where did that come from?
Yes, I often ask myself that, because it really was a major thing. I mean, even to just make that decision that this is the direction we were going took a lot of courage. But then to actually follow through with it, make the big move, start everything all over again, basically reinvent my life, it took a lot of courage, tenacity. And one of the things I kind of attribute that to is when I was a kid, we moved a lot. And so learning how to start over and start over and start over was something that I had done many times. So I think kind of leaning back on that, knowing that I've started over before, I can start over again. Obviously, it's a bit different when I'm the grown up and I've got all the responsibilities on my shoulders. And but I think that was a big part that helped me, was that just knowing that I'd done this before in different ways. But there was definitely times when, sleepless nights. And actually in the first book that I did, I talk a lot about that whole part of the story. And one of the things I mentioned, I had kind of a mantra almost, it became, and it was chin up, keep moving. And literally sometimes that was all I had to hang on to. And I would sometimes just be saying that in my head. Sometimes I'd say it out loud, but literally just chin up, keep moving. Like when things are too hard, when things don't make sense, when things are just falling down around you, just keep moving in the right direction.
And how did you choose the right direction? Because sometimes,
I think
all of us,
intuition has been a huge part of it.
So how do you nurture that inspiration? That intuition, I'm sorry. How do you nurture that intuition?
I think a big part of it was when I first learned to acknowledge it and understand the difference between intuition and fear or impulse, and to recognize the difference between them all. And when I started to see that my intuition was taking me in the right direction, it gave me more and more confidence to lean on it and recognize that it was showing me the way.
Correct. So what we get from here is that if you have an intuition or somewhere a niggling, faint little voice talking to you, please heed it, and do not just overlook whatever you're hearing from within you. Okay, so with these stories and with these books that you're coming up, what is the next?
The next book or the next thing?
The next thing?
Well, as you know, the next big thing is going to New York City to have our faces on a billboard and celebrate. So definitely creating retreats and creating opportunities for women to come together in person is definitely one of the next things that I'm adding on. The books will definitely be continuing. I'm always open to new ideas. So if someone's got an idea for a book that they think would be a good next one to do, then definitely I am open to suggestions. And that's always fun. And going into different communities, like we did with the Leadership Global group, where we actually created a book that was specific to that community. So we can do that in other communities as well. And that becomes a great way to promote the community as a whole, and then also spotlight all the different members that are in the book.
So, how do you plan to lead these authors in the coming years? What would be the legacy that you are? Do you have a legacy that you're planning to leave behind? And what would be that legacy? And does that include these authors and these books?
Yes, and to me, one of the big things that's a big value in participating in these books is that it really does open doors to new possibilities, things that you hadn't even seen before, doors you hadn't noticed, things that you couldn't have imagined before. And to me, that is a huge part of what you get out of being in these books. And part of what we do as well is we bring in opportunities to be on podcasts and summits and other opportunities like that to build their speaking careers. And so far, there have been almost 200 women in my books. And so when I look back at the progress that has been made by so many of those women in building their business, in building their own confidence, in opening up those doors that I was speaking of into speaking opportunities and other kinds of communities, it has just been amazing. And I think too, on the other side of kind of looking at legacy, to be able to leave my story behind to support other people who are coming through similar things is really big. And even looking at my kids and the role model that I am for them, I think watching me follow my passion, take on something completely new, and just really go with it, I think it's helped them to see that those opportunities are available to them as well.
I think you have actually shown that people who are, in STEM can actually move towards an absolute art area, because writing is very much to do with arts. It's
Yeah.
a creative, it's a creative field. And you have shown that that is possible, and is in fact one of the pathways that not all STEM have to remain within STEM, and they can move towards an area. Has that, so with this, actually, one question that just came up, and it's a question that just popped up in my head, may not be rightly framed though. With, I too have a lot of STEM and a lot of STEM background, and people who are from the STEM background. What is the difference between being in a STEM area and then moving on to a creative field, an arts, arts field?
Yes, no, it's actually kind of funny that growing up as a kid, I was good at science, I was good at math, and I was always told, or thought I was being told, that I was not creative, I was a not good writer. And so I had actually stayed away from things that were creative and required a lot of writing, because I felt that I wasn't good at those things. I stuck with what I knew I was good at. And yeah, now when I look at it, I realize everything I'm doing now is all creative. Whether I'm creating new titles, bringing together new people, creating the community, creating the books, it's all completely creative. And it's interesting too, because of my background in STEM, I've always considered myself a woman of STEM. And so I have a series of books that are specific for them. So we are actually on our third book right now, and it's actually called Women in STEAM, a Global Movement. So we've added the A for arts in the middle there too, because I feel too, when you look at sciences, you really can't have science without art. There has to be that creative edge. There has to be that curiosity. There has to be that artistic side of developing and designing. And like you were mentioning the research projects and things that you're doing, even just developing a project requires imagination and creativity. And especially now with all the AI, art has become a huge part of everything that goes on. So yes, so the new book is Women in STEAM.
Okay, so we come across one more book now, and that is Women in STEAM as well. How would you want our listeners and our viewers to connect with you? How would you like them to follow your work? And is there details
Yes.
that you could share?
Well, the social media that you'll find me on the most is LinkedIn. The other ones I make an appearance, but I'm not very active on. So LinkedIn is definitely the best social media to follow me on. And my website is inspiredtenacity.com. And there you'll find the connections with all my previous books, and also information about my current books, as well as other things that are going on in the community. So LinkedIn and my website are definitely the best places to find me.
Fine, fantastic. One last, takeaway that, I would like to ask of you is, what I understood is that throughout this journey of yours, that you started off in the STEM, in research, and then went on to now, curating books, creating this space where, you not only create a community of women who come together and write, and you make them into authors also. How do you do that? How do you make women who may not have written before, who may be writing their first ever book, first ever chapter or article or whatever, how do you make them write?
Well, first they have to have their own will to write and want to be able to write, but I find one of the things I've been told is one of my other superpowers is creating trust and safety. And so I find that when I bring women into my community and we start developing what their story is and how they're going to present it, I find that I'm able to bring them through some of that fear and that uncertainty, and kind of just help them get grounded in their story. And of course, with different stories, there's so many different levels, and they don't necessarily need to tell the deepest, darkest parts of their story. So they can really choose where in their story they want to share in these different books. And so I think that's one of the things that I'm able to do, is help them to see where they're comfortable sharing and which parts of their story they're comfortable sharing. And for most of them, they are entrepreneurs who are focused on also building visibility in their business. So to be able to take their story and lean it in a direction that spotlights what they're doing now in their business. Because of course, for most of us, what we're doing now is our passion. It's come from our story. It's come from what we've come through and now what we're giving back. So really, their story becomes a lead magnet, a promotional piece for their business, because it's all connected.
Lovely. And with that, thank you, Cathy, for being with us, and your wisdom, your experiences. I hope our audience too learns from them, learns from it, gets in touch with you if they have a book, budding in them, growing in them. So they should definitely get in touch with you. But even then, otherwise, I think it would be lovely for people to know you for who you are and as a person, and understand your wisdom and learn from your wisdom. That's one of the best things that they could do with you. Thank you so much for being a part of Having and Vibing with Dr. Bibi. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.